Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Book summary of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. Before you can adopt the 7 habits, you must first change your perspective and interpretation of how the world works. See, paradigm shift. You have the freedom to pick your response between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Focus on your attitudes and behaviors to make relatively simple adjustments in your life. Management is doing things properly. Leadership is doing the right things. A paradigm is a method to see the world. We perceive the world, not as it is, but how we have been conditioned to see it. Work on your fundamental paradigms to achieve significant, quantum transformation. Leadership is articulating the value and potential of others in such a way that they are encouraged to recognize it in themselves. The character ethic argues that there are basic principles for living effectively, and that people can only achieve true success and long-term satisfaction if they understand and incorporate these values into their core character. It's like cramming your way through school by focusing on technique. What you are shouts so loudly in my ears I cannot hear what you say. Thomas Edison. In our heads, we have many maps, which can be split into 2 categories, maps of the way things are, or realities, and maps of the way things should be, or values. All of our experiences are interpreted through these mental maps. We rarely doubt their correctness, and we're often ignorant that we have them. We simply take for granted that the way we see things is the way they are or should be. Trying to change external attitudes and behaviors won't help us in the long term if we don't look at the fundamental assumptions that those attitudes and actions are based on. We perceive the world through the lens of who we are, or how we have been conditioned to see it. Our paradigms, whether correct or flawed, are the foundations of our attitudes, behaviors, and, ultimately, our interpersonal relationships. We can probably rightly focus on our attitudes and behaviors if we want to make relatively minor improvements in our lives. However, if we want to see significant, quantum change, we must address our fundamental mindsets. Character is inextricably linked to paradigms. In the human dimension, being is perceiving. And what we perceive is inextricably linked to who we are. Paradigms are influential because they shape our perception of the world. Whether the shift is immediate or slow and intentional, the power of paradigm shift is the essential power of quantum change. Practices are situationally particular, she says of practices versus ideals. Principles are deep, fundamental facts that apply to everyone. Principles define the terrain. Maps are what values are. We have the truth, knowledge of things as they are, when we regard proper principles. Admitting that we are ignorant is frequently the first step in our education. The way we look at the issue is the issue. The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Albert Einstein. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle. Sow a thought, reap an action, sow an action, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, sow a character, reap a destiny. A habit, according to Stephen, is the junction of knowledge, competence, and desire. The theoretical paradigm, the what to do and why, is knowledge. The ability to do anything is referred to as a skill. And desire is what drives us to do what we want to do. Stephen emphasizes that we need all 3 to make anything a habit in our life. Private triumphs come before public triumphs. True effectiveness is determined by 2 factors, the product, golden eggs, and the generating asset, capacity to create, the goose. The P/PC balance, as Stephen refers to it, is the key to effectiveness. P denotes the creation of desired outcomes, such as golden eggs. PC stands for production capability, which refers to the ability or asset that allows the golden eggs to be produced. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. Henry David Thoreau. We are not our feelings, says the narrator. Our moods are not who we are. Even our thoughts are not who we are. We are separated from them in the animal world by the fact that we can think about these things. There are 3 social maps, 3 deterministic models widely accepted to describe the nature of man, either separately or in combination. Genetic predisposition. This basically means that your grandparents were the ones who did it to you. This is why you're so irritable. Psychic determinism. Environmental determinism basically claims your parents did it to you. This basically means that your boss is doing it to you, or your spouse, or that obnoxious adolescent, or your financial condition, or national policies. Your condition is caused by someone or something in your environment. Your freedom or power to choose your response exists between what happens to you, or the stimulus, and your response to it. Man has the flexibility to choose between input and response. People who are proactive can bring their own weather with them. It makes no difference to them whether it rains or shines. They are value-driven, and whether the weather is favorable or not has no bearing on their ability to deliver high-quality work. The proactive person's capacity to subordinate a desire to a value is the essence of their personality. Feelings, situations, settings, and their surroundings drive reactive people. Values, carefully considered, adopted, and internalized values, drive proactive individuals. External cues, whether physical, social, or psychological, continue to impact proactive people. However, their response to the inputs is a value-based choice or response, whether conscious or unconscious. It's not what happens to us that hurts us, it's how we respond to what occurs to us. According to Viktor Frankl, there are 3 core values in life. The experiential, or what occurs to us, the creative, or what we create, and the attitudinal, or how we react in terrible situations like terminal illness. What matters most is how we respond to life's challenges. People who are proactive concentrate their efforts in the circle of influence. They focus on the issues over which they have control. Their energy is positive, expanding and magnifying, and this causes their circle of influence to grow. The issues we're dealing with come into one of 3 categories. Direct command. Problems stemming from our own actions. Indirect control. There is no control over problems regarding other people's behavior. Problems we have no control over, such as our past or current circumstances. The philosophy of begin with the end in mind is founded on the idea that everything is created twice. All things have a mental or first creation and a physical or second creation. Management does the right things, leadership does the right things. Management determines if the ladder is leaning against the right wall as it climbs the success ladder, leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the proper wall. Imagination and conscience are 2 more distinctive human gifts that enable us to develop our proactivity and exert personal leadership in our lives. Writing or revising a mission statement transforms you because it encourages you to think deeply and thoughtfully about your objectives, as well as to connect your actions with your convictions. Others will notice that you aren't being driven by everything that happens to you as you progress. You have a feeling of mission and are enthusiastic about what you're trying to accomplish. There are 5 key components to an effective affirmation. It's personal, it's upbeat, it's in the present tense, it's vivid, and it's emotional. It is extremely rewarding, emotional, that I, personal, respond, present tense, with wisdom, love, firmness, and self-control, positive, when my children misbehave, as an example of an affirmation. The challenge is to manage ourselves rather than time. With people, you simply can't think efficiently. You consider people's efficacy and the efficiency of things. Peace of mind comes only when your life is in accordance with authentic beliefs and values. What are the behaviors of highly effective people? The book begins with an explanation of how many people who have reached a high level of external success nevertheless struggle with an inner drive to improve personal effectiveness and cultivate healthy interpersonal relationships. Covey believes that our impressions of the world are entirely founded on our own. We must change ourselves in order to alter a circumstance, and we must be able to modify our views in order to change ourselves. Covey discovered a significant shift in the way humans have defined success over time after analyzing over 200 years of writing on the subject. In the past, success was built on a strong sense of morality, things like integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule. However, beginning in the 1920s, people's perceptions of success moved to what Covey refers to as a personality ethic, where success is a function of personality, public image, attitudes, and behaviors. People nowadays are looking for quick remedies. How do you do it? Teach me your ways. They ask when they observe a successful person, team, or organization. But the shortcuts we seek in the hopes of saving time and effort while still achieving the intended result are simply band-aids that will only provide short-term relief. They don't deal with the root problem. Covey states, "The way we see the problem is the problem." To achieve meaningful transformation, we must allow ourselves to undergo paradigm shifts, to change ourselves fundamentally rather than just changing our attitudes and behaviors on the surface. The 7 tendencies of highly effective people come into play here. Habits 1 to 3 are all about self-mastery and transitioning from dependence to independence. Habits 4, 5, and 6 focus on teamwork, collaboration, and communication skills, as well as transitioning from independence to dependency. Habit 7 embodies all of the previous habits and is focused on ongoing growth and improvement. We're the ones in command. We write the scripts that govern our life. Make the most of your self-awareness by being proactive and accepting responsibility for your decisions. Being proactive is the first habit that Covey discusses. Our natural ability to assess our own character, select how to interpret ourselves and our environment, and regulate our own effectiveness distinguishes us as humans from all other creatures. Simply said, one must be proactive in order to be productive. People who are reactive adopt a passive attitude, believing that the world is happening to them. They make statements like, "I'm powerless to help. That's just how I'm wired." They believe the problem is out there, but it is their perception that is the issue. Reactive people feel increasingly abused and out of control as their reactivity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Proactive people, on the other hand, realize their duty, or responsibility, as defined by Covey as the power to select how you will respond to a particular stimuli or situation. Reactive people, on the other hand, concentrate on issues that are in their circle of concern but not in their circle of influence, which leads to external blame, negative energy, and a shrinking of their circle of influence. Key takeaways. Put the notion of proactivity to the test by undertaking the following. 1. Begin to use proactive language instead of reactive language. "He irritates me to no end. I am in charge of my own sentiments," says the proactive person. 2. Transform reactive to proactive jobs. Begin with a specific goal in mind. According to Covey, we may use our imagination to create a picture of who we want to be and our conscience to choose the principles that will lead us. It's relatively easy for most of us to keep ourselves occupied. We strive for triumphs in the form of promotions, more pay, and increased recognition. But we rarely pause to consider the significance of our bustle, of our achievements. We don't question ourselves if the things we are so focused on are truly important to us. Habit 2 indicates that we should start with the end in mind in all we do. Begin with a specific goal in mind. We'll be able to ensure that the actions we're taking are in the proper direction this way. Our self-awareness, according to Covey, allows us to shape our own lives rather than living them by default or according to the standards or preferences of others. For enterprises, it's also critical to start with the end in mind. It's all about efficiency when you're a manager. However, becoming a leader begins with establishing the correct strategic vision for your organization and asking, what are we aiming to achieve? Individuals and organizations must be able to understand their values before they can begin defining and attaining goals. To be able to assert our own personal values, this process may require some rescripting. Rescripting, according to Covey, involves recognizing unsuccessful scripts that have been produced for you and proactively developing new ones based on your own values to replace them. It's also crucial to pinpoint our focal point. Whatever is in the core of our lives will provide us with safety, direction, wisdom, and power. Our centers have a significant impact on us. They influence our daily decisions, actions, and motives, as well as how we interpret events. However, according to Covey, none of these centers are ideal, and we should instead seek to be principle-centered. We must choose the timeless, unchanging ideals by which we must live. This will provide us with the direction we require to match our actions with our ideas and values. Key takeaways. Try the following to put the notion of starting with the end in mind to the test. 1. Visualize your own funeral in great detail. Is there anyone there? What do they have to say about you? What do you think of the way you lived your life? What about the romantic relationships you've had? What are you hoping they'll say? Consider how your priorities might shift if you only had 30 days to live. Begin to live by these principles. 2. Break down your various responsibilities in life, whether professional, personal, or community, and write down 3 to 5 goals for each. 3. Define what makes you afraid. Speaking in front of an audience? After you've finished writing a book, do you get any critical feedback? Write down the worst-case scenario for your greatest fear, then see yourself dealing with it. Make a plan for how you'll deal with it. We must prioritize first things first in order to efficiently manage ourselves. We must be disciplined enough to prioritize our daily activities based on what is most important, not what is most urgent. In Habit 2, we spoke about how important it is to figure out what our values are and what we're trying to accomplish. Habit 3 is all about actively pursuing our objectives and putting our priorities into action on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. We must have the willpower to do something we don't want to do in order to keep the discipline and focus necessary to stay on track toward our goals. At any given time, we must act in accordance with our values rather than our wishes or instincts. We respond quickly to urgent situations. We waste our time on things that are unimportant to us. As a result, we overlook Quadrant Ii, which is the most important of them all. If we concentrate on Quadrant I and spend our time dealing with crises and difficulties, it will continue to grow until it absorbs us. This leads to exhaustion, tension, and a perpetual need to put out fires. If we concentrate on Quadrant Ii, we will spend the majority of our time reacting to things that appear urgent, but their apparent urgency is based on the priorities and expectations of others. This results in a lack of long-term focus, a sense of being out of control, and relationships that are superficial or broken. We are basically living an irresponsible life if we concentrate on Quadrant 4. This frequently results in job termination and a significant reliance on others. Quadrant 2 is the foundation of good personal management. It covers topics such as developing connections, long-term planning, exercising, and preparation, all things we know we should do but rarely do since they don't feel essential. We must learn to say no to other tasks, including those that appear important, in order to focus our time in Quadrant 2. We must also be able to efficiently delegate. Plus, focusing on Quadrant 2 means we're planning ahead, addressing the source of the problem, and preventing crises from occurring in the first place. This allows us to use the Pareto Principle, which states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your time. We should always prioritize connections and outcomes, with time as a secondary consideration. Think people effectiveness and things efficiency. Stephen Covey. Key takeaways. Here are some examples of how you can practice prioritizing. 1. Choose a Quadrant 2 activity that you've been ignoring. Make a list of it and make a commitment to putting it into action. 2. To begin prioritizing, make your own time management matrix. 3. Calculate the amount of time you spend in each of the quadrants. Then keep track of your time for 3 days. What was the accuracy of your estimate? How much time did you spend in the most critical quadrant, Quadrant 2? We must commit to generating win-win circumstances that are mutually advantageous and satisfying to each side in order to develop productive interdependent relationships. According to Covey, there are 6 types of human interaction paradigms. 1. Both parties benefit from a win-win situation. Both parties benefit from and are satisfied with agreements or solutions. 2. Win-lose people are prone to using their position, authority, credentials, and charisma to acquire what they want. 3. Lose-win people are ready to satisfy and soothe others, and they seek strength from popularity or acceptance. 4. Both persons lose in a lose-lose situation. When 2 win-lose people connect, that is, when 2 determined, stubborn, ego-invested people interact, the result is lose-lose. 5. Win people who have a win attitude don't necessarily desire someone else to lose. This is unimportant. It doesn't matter what they get, what matters is that they get it. 6. Win-win or no deal. If you can't come to a mutually beneficial agreement, there's no deal. Creating win-win situations is the greatest alternative. With win-lose, or lose-win, one person appears to get what he wants for the time being, but the outcomes will have a severe impact on the 2 people's relationship in the future. As a backup, the win-win or no deal option is critical. When we consider no deal as a possibility, we are relieved of the urge to manipulate others and promote our own agenda. We can be honest and sincere in our efforts to comprehend the underlying difficulties. To achieve win-win, you must not only be pleasant, but also daring. Stephen Covey. Maintaining an abundance mentality, or the attitude that there is enough for everyone, is another crucial aspect in finding win-win solutions. The majority of individuals have a scarcity mentality, which means they act as though everything is a zero-sum game. In other words, if you get it, I don't. People with the scarcity mentality have a hard time sharing credit or acknowledgement, and it's difficult for them to be really glad for other people's accomplishments. When it comes to interpersonal leadership, the more real our character is, the more proactive we are, the more committed we are to win-win, the greater our influence. Keep the focus on results, not tactics, on problems, not individuals, to accomplish win-win. Finally, in a competitive setting, the win-win mentality will perish. We need to match our reward system with our aims and values as a company, and have the processes in place to enable win-win. Key takeaways. Start thinking win-win when it comes to the following challenges. 1. Consider a future interaction in which you'll be trying to reach an agreement or a solution. Make a list of the things that the other person is looking for. Next, build a list of how you can make an offer to address those needs next to it. 2. Make a list of 3 significant connections in your life. Consider how you feel about the balance in each of those connections. Do you have a habit of giving more than you take? What if you take more than you give? Make a list of 10 strategies to always give more than you take. 3. Consider your own interpersonal tendencies in depth. Is it a win-loss situation? What impact does this have on your interpersonal interactions? Can you tell me where that approach came from? Check to see if this strategy works for you and your relationships. Make a list of everything. We must endeavor to truly comprehend another person and their perspective before we can offer advice, suggest solutions, or effectively communicate with them in any way. If you go to an optometrist and tell him you're having difficulty seeing properly, he removes his spectacles, hands them to you, and says, "Here, try these, they've been working for me for years." You put them on, but they only make the problem worse. What are the possibilities that you'll visit that optometrist again? In our everyday encounters with people, we unfortunately do the same thing. Before we diagnose a problem, we prescribe a solution. We don't try to figure out what the problem is all about first. We must attempt first to comprehend, then to be understood, according to Habit 5. We must learn to listen in order to seek understanding. You have to build the skills of empathic listening on a base of character that inspires openness and trust. Stephen Covey. We considerably boost the credibility of our ideas when we can convey them clearly and in the context of a profound grasp of the other person's needs and concerns. Key takeaways. Here are a few strategies to get into the habit of looking for answers first. 1. Cover your ears and watch the next time you see two individuals speaking. What feelings are being transmitted that words alone might not be able to convey? Was one individual more interested in the talk than the other? Make a list of what you noticed. 2. Consider empathizing with your audience the next time you give a presentation. Begin by thoroughly describing the audience's point of view. What issues do they have to deal with? What you're about to say isn't going to solve their problems in any way. We can build synergy by understanding and valuing the contrasts in another person's perspective, which allows us to discover new possibilities through openness and creativity. All of the previous habits work together to prepare us for Habit 6, synergy, or when 1 + 1 = 3 or more and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. If you put two plants close together, for example, their roots will mix and improve the soil quality, allowing both plants to develop better than they would on their own. Synergy enables us to develop new options and explore new possibilities. It allows us to agree as a group to get rid of the old scripts and write new ones. Without doubt, you have to leave the comfort zone of base camp and confront an entirely new and unknown wilderness. Stephen Covey. So, how do we bring synergy into a situation or an environment? Begin with Habits 4 and 5, think win-win and seek to understand first. Once you've figured out what you want, you can combine your wishes with the other person's or a group's. Then you're not on opposing sides of the issue, you're on the same side, looking at the problem, recognizing all of the demands, and working to develop a third option that meets them. We end up with a transformation rather than a transaction. Both parties obtain what they want, and their relationship improves as a result. By evoking a sense of trust and security, we can encourage people to be more open and feed off of one another's thoughts and ideas, resulting in synergy. The true essence of synergy is valuing distinctions among people, such as mental, emotional, and psychological diversity. After all, if two persons hold the same viewpoint, one of them is superfluous. Good. You see it differently. Help me see what you see, we can say when we become aware of someone's different perspective. To develop new possibilities and win-win outcomes, we first strive to comprehend, and then to find strength and utility in those various views. You can use synergy to appreciate other people's differences as a chance to broaden your horizons. Avoid bad energy by looking for the positive in people. Have the bravery to be open in interdependent circumstances and urge others to do the same. Create a third alternative to catalyze creativity and find a solution that is beneficial for everyone. Key takeaways. 1. Make a list of those who annoy you. Now pick only one individual. What are the differences between their points of view? For 1 minute, put yourself in their shoes. Consider and act as though you are them. Does this give you a better understanding of them? Try to comprehend their concerns and why they disagree with you the next time you're in an argument with that person. The more you understand someone, the easier it will be to persuade them to change their minds, or yours. 2. Make a list of the folks you get along with well. Now pick only one individual. What are the differences between their points of view? Now think about a time when you worked well with others and had a lot of synergy. Why? What circumstances did you have to meet in order to achieve such fluidity in your interactions? How do you recreate those circumstances? We must take time to rejuvenating ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially in order to be productive. Continuous renewal allows us to strengthen our ability to practice each habit in a synergistic way. Habit 7 is all about renewal, or taking time to sharpen the saw, and it connects all of the other habits by protecting and strengthening your most valuable asset, yourself. Our nature has 4 dimensions: each of which must be exercised on a regular basis and in a balanced manner. Physical dimension. The purpose of continual physical progress is to exercise our bodies in a way that improves our ability to work, adapt, and enjoy ourselves. To physically regenerate oneself, we must eat healthily, get enough rest and relaxation, exercise regularly to increase your endurance, flexibility, and strength. Focusing on the physical dimension aids in the development of Habit 1 proactivity muscles. Rather than reacting to the forces that restrict us from being fit, we behave based on the value of well-being. Spiritual dimension. The purpose of spiritual self-renewal is to give our lives direction and to reinforce our commitment to our value system. You can spiritually refresh yourself by meditate on a daily basis, get in touch with nature, spend time immersed in great literature or music. We can exercise Habit 2 by focusing on our spiritual dimension as we constantly review and devote ourselves to our ideals, so we can start with the goal in mind. Mental dimension. Continuing to grow our minds is the goal of renewing our mental health. You can do the following to refresh your mind. Read high-quality literature. Write down your thoughts, experiences, and insights in a journal. Watching television should be limited to only those shows that provide value to your life and thoughts. Focusing on our mental dimension assists us in practicing Habit 3 by successfully managing ourselves to make the most use of our time and resources. Social/emotional dimension. Developing meaningful relationships is the purpose of social renewal. You can re-energize your emotions by make an effort to comprehend others completely, make substantial contributions to worthwhile causes that benefit people, keep an abundance mindset and strive to assist others succeed. Recognizing that win-win solutions do exist, attempting to understand others, and developing mutually beneficial third alternatives through synergy are all benefits of renewing our social and emotional dimension. Not a day goes by that we can't at least serve one other human being by making deposits of unconditional love. Stephen Covey. We must strive to be a positive scripter for others while we focus on reinventing ourselves along these 4 dimensions. We must strive to motivate others to choose a higher path by demonstrating our faith in them, listening to them empathically, and urging them to take action. The true beauty of the 7 habits is that improving one behavior boosts our potential to improve the others in a synergistic manner. Renewal is the process that allows us to continue on an upward trajectory of growth and change, and to improve. Key takeaways. 1. Make a list of activities that will help you rejuvenate in each of the 4 dimensions. Choose one action for each dimension and make it a goal for the week ahead. Evaluate your performance at the conclusion of the week. What factors contributed to your success or failure in achieving each goal? 2. Make a weekly commitment to write out a specific sharpen the saw action in each of the 4 dimensions, to do it, and to evaluate your performance and results. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.